Most people believe that slavery ended with the Emancipation Proclamation and the 13th Amendment, but this is far from true. Mass incarceration has created a system of slavery that is justifiable under the 13th Amendment. It states that slavery can exist as a punishment for crime. This way, Black people can continue to be targeted by the system and placed into the prison pipeline. The present effects of this loophole are that African American adults are at least 5.9 times as likely to be incarcerated as whites. Furthermore, out of 6.8 million prisoners, 2.3 million of them are Black. Furthermore, American prisons are overcrowded, they have harsh, inhumane conditions, and they exploit the labor of the incarcerated people. More so, life after prison is not really life at all. Most people don't understand the vast impacts that mass incarceration can have on everyday life. It's extremely important to know what's going on in the world, and this is a problem that especially needs to be addressed since it affects so many people. Mass incarceration can destroy lives, it fuels poverty and disadvantage, and it perpetuates slavery. But how does mass incarceration even start? Now, politicians can be a main cause of incarceration. This was seen in June 1971 with President Richard Nixon. He claimed that drug abuse was public enemy number one. Because of this, police today make more than 1.5 million drug arrests each year, and about 500,000 people are in jail for no more than a drug law violation. Black and brown people are disproportionately impacted by drug enforcement and sentencing practices. The war on drugs itself was said to target Black people and hippies. Another politician who helped cause incarceration was Ronald Reagan. Incarceration rates absolutely skyrocketed during his presidency, surging from 50,000 in 1980 to over 400,000 by 1997. Bill Clinton was also another politician who had a strong impact in incarceration rates, and not only incarceration rates, but how long people are in prison for. One of the main parts of this bill included a 3 strikes and you're out policy. With this, there were mandated life sentences for criminals who were convicted of a felony after 2 or more prior convictions, and this included drug crimes. Another way that politics has an impact is through cases. In the case of Ruffin versus Commonwealth in 1871, a prisoner was stated to be a slave of the state. Now, another way that mass incarceration is influenced is through the prison pipeline, which causes a lot of arrests of younger people and usually people of color. Now, this starts back in the school, and usually there are cops in lower income schools, and this can lead to students, which are usually students of color, being wrongly criminalized and furthermore arrested in school settings. Now, going even further back, it really starts with a lack of resources, lack of funding, and overall not enough care in the schools. The main way this is shown is through overcrowding of classrooms, lack of qualified teachers, and insufficient funding, which elevates the amount of school dropouts. And if they're not in school, it is said to be more likely that they will turn to a life of crime with nothing else to do with their time. Now, I spoke before about it happening in lower income areas, and this is one of the main ways that poverty can actually induce mass incarceration. Now, roughly 500,000 people are incarcerated because they can't pay for their release. Their bail is set too high that there's no possible way that they can pay it. People are also imprisoned for low-level offenses and property crimes. And if they're being arrested because of their property or payments due to their property, it's because they don't have the money to afford things like this. And when they get to prison, they're not going to be able to pay for bail. Another really strong factor is plea bargaining. This occurs when a defendant will plead to a lesser charge, they will plead guilty to a lesser charge, and they will expect leniency. But this leads to people wrongly convicting themselves, and furthermore, they're now guilty instead of pleading innocent. Another really hard part of incarceration is the fact that there are inhumane conditions. You don't receive the help you need, and you are submitted to involuntary labor. Now, as it relates to inhumane conditions, nearly 2 million people are incarcerated, put in cramped spaces that lack fresh air, healthy food, natural light, proper health care, and connection to loved ones and other people in general. Overcrowding, violence, sexual abuse, and other conditions are grave risks to health and safety of the prisoners. 70% of prisoners cannot afford the basic necessities, and prison conditions are very dirty. And usually there's not funding that goes towards cleaning, but more so putting more people in prison. Also, in prison, you don't receive the help that you need. Approximately 12 million prison guards say that they respond to mental health crises with solitary confinement or force. This is going to cause prisoners to delve deeper into mental illness, and because of this, they will never get the help that they need. As I stated in the introduction, the 13th Amendment creates a loophole that allows prisoners to work and do forced labor, and they aren't getting paid for it at all. Another problem is the prison industrial complex. A lot of prisons have financial incentives to continue mass incarceration because they will get more money the more prisoners they have. And it's even worse when America has the highest incarceration rate. And this essentially started after the Civil War when states put prisoners through convict leasing, which would have states and private businesses making money off of the work that the prisoners do. Now, one of the worst and saddest parts about mass incarceration is that once you are in the prison system, you can't go back to your regular, normal life that you had pre incarceration. Now, a lot of people, especially minorities, face discrimination in the hiring process, and prisoners will earn lower wages and they aren't prepared socially for the world. More so, it is likely they will never get a job, as most institutions will not hire people who have a record. And most prisoners will forget how to function properly in society once they are released, since they become accustomed to the terrible, inhumane conditions that were inside the prison. All in all, incarceration continues to ruin lives, promote poverty and disadvantage, and maintain enslavement. It is now more important than ever to be aware of the effects that mass incarceration has on the world. It is evident that change is needed, and although it seems that our system is irrevocably corrupt, change can only begin where ignorance ends. Thank you.